Welcome to the Education Scotland podcast. In every episode, we are joined by teachers, professionals and experts to unpack some of the big questions and topics facing the education sector in Scotland. Stay informed with the latest on education in Scotland by subscribing to our podcast.
Good morning and welcome very much to Emma, Isla, Sophie and Fiona, who are joining us today to have a discussion around the impact of children's rights in schools in Scotland. I'm Maxine Jolly, I'm a Senior Education Officer in Education Scotland. And Emma, would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm Emma Muir, Community Learning Officer at Renfrewshire Youth Services.
Thank you. And Isla?
I'm Isla, I'm an S4 pupil at Trinity High School in Renfrew.
Great, thank you. And Sophie?
Hi, I'm Sophie. I'm Primary 7. I'm from St David's Primary.
Thanks very much. And Fiona?
I'm Fiona White, and Health and Wellbeing Development Officer within Renfrewshire Council.
Thank you very much, everybody. As I said, we're here today to try and find out what your perceptions are, children and young people's perceptions of children's rights in school. So I'm going to start off. The first question is really, how are children's rights recognised in your school?
Within my school, I was involved in a group which helped my school achieve the status of being a Silver Award Rights Respecting School. And so since that time, we've been on our journey towards gold. But during that time, in order to achieve that award, we had many lessons in social education classes in which children learnt about their rights. There was many conversations about safety, how to keep safe in the community and online, which is obviously upholding the safety of the child. And as well as that, when we had children come up from primary 7 and primary 6 in order to have their induction training for high school, they were able to learn about their rights in their country and comparing it to other country, which obviously is just stressing Article 4 in itself, which is kind of the identification and implementation of these rights. Along with that, in our school, we've had a lot to do with MVP mentors, which is mentor and violence prevention, and that's honestly helped also promote the safety of the child, which is Article 37, opposing the cruel behaviour and encouraging a safe, good environment for a child to be in. So generally, I think that's what our school's been doing thus far, but we're definitely doing a lot more in order to promote the rights and make children aware of the rights that they have.
I wonder, Sophie, if there's anything you want to add to that from your own school?
Teachers try their best to listen to our opinions and encourage us to do more stuff to do about the rights.
So your opinions are listened to, and we'll be coming on to that in another question as well. I don't know if the adults have anything they want to add, Emma or Fiona?
So I'm not based in a school, I work in youth services, but we have a lot of youth voice groups, and a lot of those groups are focused around listening to the voice of young people and taking that further to what it is that they want to achieve through doing so.
I think
Thank
we've
you.
had a real focus on pupil voice and pupil rights within Renfrewshire Council. Obviously, we've just heard about MVP, and it's great to hear such positive comments in Trinity High School. But also around the development of our personal social education courses, we've really made sure that pupil voice is at the heart of the developments that we've made over the last few years. And those developments have been recognised by COSLA and by Scottish Public Service Awards as well, which is really encouraging.
That's great news, yeah, because we know that there were some concerns about PSE in some local authorities, so it's good to see that those changes are being made. So moving on, you've talked a little bit already about what your school is doing to recognise rights, but what difference do you think it's making in your school, not just to yourselves, but to all of the other learners in the school too?
We have citizenship groups, which allows us to pick a key, where you can either do rights nights, you can do the eco, and then you can do community champions, which lets us all talk about what we can do to make things different about everything. And we also have house groups that gives us a sense of teamwork to do everything. And then if we do that, then we can all go on a school trip.
Okay, so that's everybody can then be involved in that school trip. Yeah. So it's a sense of everybody coming together and working together.
Yeah.
Sounds like what you're describing. Yeah, that sounds good. And do you want to follow on from that, Isla, from your school's perspective?
Yeah, so from my personal perspective and my school's perspective, we've definitely, the award that we've got is definitely showcasing, you know, our school status of that award. And so I think young people have been empowered into a lot of leadership roles, such as class representative or a house captain or sports leader. You know, they know that their voices are valued. And they can also be in a position in which they are trying to channel or propel some sort of change. So I do think that everybody in my school genuinely does have a real understanding of their voice being valued, and that action goes hand in hand with words. And so I think when that action does translate from those words, we genuinely do see more people in that position, more people encouraged to speak out, make change, whether that be, you know, something to do with the toilets or something to do with a phone policy in school. Our perspectives are definitely offered and valued, I feel.
That's really useful, and it's interesting you mentioned toilets, because I know that comes out a lot through conversations with schools as something that's perhaps not always managed very well. So a good point to bring up there. Again, I don't know, Emma or Fiona, if there's anything you want to add to that in terms of how the rights-based approach is impacting on all learners.
I suppose for me in my role, it's around ensuring that pupils' needs are being met around mental health and wellbeing. So we've taken a very proactive approach around ensuring that staff have the skills to have the right conversation at the right time. And also that pupils feel that they're accessing support around their mental health and wellbeing. We have a signposting resource in the authority that's displayed around our schools. You can access by a QR code so that it's quite discreet. And since it's been launched, it's had over 25,000 hits. And we can see that it's even been used during the summer. So it's about making sure that information is easy to access for our children and young people, but also that our staff are skilled to have conversations around mental health and wellbeing. I think we all know, you know, the focus on mental health at the moment, particularly coming out of the pandemic. So just making sure that our staff are actually skilled around these conversations and confident enough to have them too.
Thank you. That's really useful to know, and we know that the main purpose of the UNCRC is to make sure that children are happy, healthy and safe within that context of children's rights. So that's a very good example. Is there anything you wanted to add to that, Emma, before we move on?
So for me in my role, because I'm more kind of like, I'm sometimes in schools, but I'm more community based. So my project leads on MVP and taking that out into the community, so that then we've got that balance of in school and community. So I suppose it's like Fiona's saying, equipping young people with the skills and like the confidence to go out and maybe be an active bystander, whether that's in school or in community.
Yeah, and it's great. But I mean, children and young people don't just exist in school, they are out in the community, they're in their homes, and you know, it's good that those messages are being shared more widely. Okay, so next question, and I think you've touched on some of this already, is about how you help others, whether that's locally in your own school or your local community, nationally across Scotland, or even wider than that, globally. So how do you support others to realise their rights in any of those areas? So I don't know if you want to pick this one up first, Isla.
So personally, although it's like out with a kind of school context, I do chair RYV, which is Renfrewshire Youth Voice, and that's a charity but also a youth voice group, which is literally created for the purpose of uplifting young people, hearing their voices, hearing what they want changed in their community, if there's any problems which affect them. But it's also about alleviating poverty among young people. So genuinely, as well as it align with Article 14, which is obviously freedom of thought, freedom of speech, it's also able to align with the general sentiment of young people being aware of what affects them in their area. Outside of that, within school, and also, I suppose, a bit more nationally, I won YPI, so Youth Philanthropic Initiative, for my school, in which I was able to see a really positive impact because a charity was able to benefit from that, and within that, children were able to benefit from that, more specifically disabled children, and they, you know, that funding went towards creating a space for them. So I would say that although that wasn't completely on my behalf, that was a part, and I had a part of that impact, which eventually did end up improving and bettering a lot of people's lives and situations through the work that charity does. In terms of on a national level, again, I do work for, I'm an MSYP, so I'm a member of the Scottish Youth Parliament, and I was also able to pass a motion about inclusive education, meaning that, I definitely agree with the fact that all young people and all learners should have a comprehensive curriculum, and they should be entitled to unbiased information and learning everything that's going to support them in their journey through school.
That's great. Really, really positive story there. So, and it's great that you're not just talking about what's happening in school, but also the other work you're doing out with in the community. And yourself, Sophie, do you want to add anything from your own schools?
Our teachers talk about like the rights of the child, and then we go home and then we tell what we learned about today, and then our mums and everything could like tell them what, like other people, what we were learning in school. So then everyone else, it spreads around the rights of the child.
That's really important that your parents and carers and families know about rights so they can support what you're doing. And as you just said there, spread the word. So, and that's the way that other people can understand what rights are and how we make sure they happen. Before I go on to that, is there anything else Emma or Fiona want to add to the work that's been doing, whether it's from a school base or a community base?
I think we're really good at tying in our work in Renfrewshire Council. Emma and I work closely on Young and Equally Safe in Renfrewshire. And again, as Emma said, the idea was to take MVP from our schools out into the community. So we have very good partnership working within the authority. Obviously, my remit is around health and wellbeing, and I link in with partners across health, social work, our active schools, One Ren, and third sector in order to deliver quality training and also ensure that our community, our Renfrewshire community, is involved in key training as well.
Thank you. And from yourself, Emma, any further comments?
From a community side of things, so we at Youth Services support Renfrewshire Youth Voice. We support the members of the Scottish Youth Parliament, taking them like to and from sittings and stuff like that. We've got Erskine Youth Council, and we've also got Limerick Youth Voice. So we're quite focused on youth voice and getting that voice of young people out there to make change, I would say. So yeah.
I think just to add, when we were looking at our PSE courses, which I mentioned earlier, there was a joint piece of work between Children's Services and Renfrewshire Youth Voice around what young people wanted to see in schools, and that became very much the focus of our developments within the council, what young people wanted to learn about, who they wanted to do the teaching, and not only we had the Scottish Government's recommendations around PSE, but it was really the voices of the young people that were leading our work within the council.
Thanks, and that's a really good point you've made there, because it's not just teachers that can teach, although I know they're the people that are qualified to deliver formal education, but you can learn from other people as well. So I think it's really important to think about that and who's the best person to deliver some of the messages. Okay, and finally, and you've already, I think, again, partially answered this question, how are your views listened to and acted upon? But I'm going to add a little bit extra around that, and that is, how do you know? So who would like to go first? It's the last question. So you going for it, Sophie?
We have wellbeing surveys that take place at assemblies, and then we can vote on how we're feeling about the school, and then we have pupil council meetings, which is like pupils that go to a meeting, and then we talk about what we want more of and everything. And then we have the opportunity to take part in our ownership of our learning by looking at the different types of topics that we would like to choose, like novels and books and everything. And then we have your say opinion box in the main corridor, which you can put like a piece of paper in of like what you want, have your say, and then you put it in the box, and then Miss Wilson and Miss Kirk look through it. And then we have our house captain and vice captains that can lead the house afternoons and around a focus.
So that's really good. Then you've got sort of really strong systems in place to make sure that your views are listened to. I'll come back to you in a minute, Sophie, because I'm going to give you some thinking time around what things have changed because of all of these opportunities to have you say. So I'll give you a minute or two to think, and come to Isla.
Yeah, so I think firstly, like, our views are listened to upon just having a space in which we can express them. So if we've got people like a leadership team, or, you know, stuff that I do with the Scottish Youth Parliament, I think just those type of people being identified as someone you can come to and someone who's going to take action on your problems is probably the first step in being able to get change, being able to make change in these schools. So I think in the way that we also see change is just in those conversations with the class representatives, with the pupil council or house captains, whichever it may be, kind of like I touched on earlier, for example, the phone policy, but most of the new kind of ideas or initiatives that were introduced into my school, where they do specifically say, like the head teacher will specifically say that it was led in collaboration with like a focus group or a voice of pupil, a pupil voice group. And so I think like seeing that change and knowing that it's came from the voice of your peers, of your classmates, and knowing that these are issues that affect you and other people, we definitely do, you know, understand that our rights are valued and our voices are valued. And I think that they're actively enforced in the safe environments which they're in when we do see that change.
Thank you very much. That's great. Very full, comprehensive answer there. Thank you. And just to pop back to you for a minute, Sophie, have you had a chance to think about anything that has changed in your school because of the views and opinions of the learners?
Mainly just everything, because it's like stopping like the bullying of like just everything, and it's just like helping us think that we have our say.
Yeah.
Does that make you feel better?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you think it's improved the relationships between the learners and between learners and staff, and yeah, that's really, really good. Okay, and then obviously Emma, do you want to add anything on, and then back to Fiona?
Yeah, so with I would say more with like my project Young and Equally Safe, what I do is I'll have a survey or a questionnaire on what young people want to learn about or what maybe they're concerned about within that group that they're attending, and then I'll go out and run workshops on that kind of like topic or whatever. So for example, we've got a safe space group which is for LGBT young people that were experiencing quite a lot of kind of like hate crimes on the buses and different questions around different things. So what I'll do is get some information and implement that into one of their sessions. So that's us like kind of listening to what their needs are and going out and fulfilling that for them.
That's a really good example, and that'll impact in school as well, you know, so great that it's going across the community into the school as well. And Fiona, is there anything you want to add there?
Yes, I think going back to our curricular developments, because it's been such a significant piece of work over the last couple of years, we brought out a new mental health and wellbeing resource for secondary schools last year. We worked with Headstrong, and the way we came up with the lessons was by listening to the young people. We ran focus groups in some of our secondary schools. We also looked at the referral themes coming through our school's counselling service, the exchange, and what they meant for the young people. So the course was designed with them in mind, you know, with their opinions on what it looked like to be a first year child, what were the struggles and how that developed through major transitions in secondary school. Also with our alcohol and substance education awareness resource, which we developed in collaboration with I Am Me Scotland. Again, our young people were the voices behind it. They even actually teach the lessons. And it was really listening to them about what they needed to know and what stage. Obviously, vaping is a huge issue at the moment across the country. But they wanted to know, maybe a wee bit younger than we would have initially thought, but they wanted to know why maybe mum was doing it or dad was doing it or big brother or sister, and what it meant for them. So we really listened to their voices around, you know, what they already knew, because sometimes they can surprise us with how much they know, but also what the gaps were. And we review our courses frequently just to make sure that we're keeping up with them.
Thanks. I'm just really encouraged by hearing about all of these learner-led activities in school, in the community, making positive changes within the school and the community. And, you know, even you were saying there, Sophie, about you get to shape some of the things you learn in the classroom in school. And I know we do have a curriculum, but at the same time, how that curriculum is taught can be varied. So that you having an opportunity to influence that is very positive. I'm really inspired by what I've heard from you all today, both from Sophie, Isla, but also Emma and Fiona. I'd really like to thank you for giving up your time this morning. As you all know, the UNCRC is incorporated into Scottish law now, so we all have to be aware of children's rights and uphold them. And you've given some fantastic examples today of what's happening in your schools and communities and how they are promoting the rights of children and the awareness of rights of children. So this is a really important topic, and I'm really pleased that we've managed to have this conversation this morning.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. Don't forget to subscribe for notification of when a new episode is published. If there is a topic you would like to hear featured on this podcast, get in touch with us. We'd love to hear from you. Follow us on our social media channels for all the latest news from Education Scotland. Education Scotland is a Scottish Government executive agency charged with supporting quality and improvement in Scottish education.